This is Rabbi Son, hot takes on news, pop culture, and religion, hosted by Rabbi Patrick, that's me, and my son Javon, spiritual, irreverent, always fearless, produced by Darshan Yeshiva. And this is the part where we find out how Javon is doing. And today Javon is doing fine. We're going to do a series on adoption because there is this like adoption influencer culture online. I said this in a previous podcast that I was really frustrated that if you go on Instagram and you type in the word adoption, the first thing you start seeing is like golden retrievers. Just kind of tells you where our culture is at with family, but and taking care of kids and what have you. But I thought it would be kind of interesting to do a few different sort of questions, topics related to adoption. But this first thing I just wanted to talk about was, these books that we gave Javon to look at. So right before we were going to do this series, producer Kaylee had said, hey, we really need some adoption content. I said, fine, because I do whatever Kaylee tells me to do. And I have these books, and I thought I would just kind of really quick read off the title. So these were books that we were told to read before we adopted Javon. This does not include, by the way, the classes that we took and the YouTube videos and the podcast. These are just the books. Okay, so this first one is Parenting Adopted Adolescents, Understanding and Appreciating Their Journeys by Gregory C. Keck, PhD. The second one is Honestly Adoption, Answers to 101 Questions About Adoption and Foster Care. This was actually the one that I thought you might be able to find some stuff in because it's just like a gigantic listicle. This is by Mike and Kristen Berry. And then this third one is by Rachel Staff. It's called Parenting Adopted Teenagers, Advice for the Adolescent Years. Do you like how all books have to have more than one title?
Yeah.
There used to just be books with names like Frankenstein. Now it's like Frankenstein, The Journey of a Man Made by a Person. I mean, Okay, and then this last one we got later. This was after we adopted you. And this one isn't something that they would give to adoptive parents, but this one's called No Way to Treat a Child. And this is by Naomi Schaefer Riley. So I kind of, went through these, and I have to say they were incredibly unhelpful. And this is, no shade to the authors who, wrote these books. I'm sure they're really helpful to other people. The Naomi Schaefer Riley book is kind of an exception because it's not a book for adoptive parents. It's a book on the foster care system. And I found it interesting. It's outside of the wheelhouse of what we're talking about. But I just wanted to bring hers up since it was a book and I read it after the fact, as did Javon's mom. So here's the thing. If you are Jewish and if you are an adoptive parent, you have no resources. So if you look at these books, at least two of them are from people who are involved in the evangelical world. And I want to say it's Keck and Barry, but I don't know if that's true or not. Javon, maybe if you see anything on there from the publishing companies and what they do. But I want to say it's those two. And then the others are just kind of general. And even one of the really great minds behind helping traumatized kids was herself also connected to the evangelical Christian world. So any of these books that you get are likely, pretty likely going to have some sort of evangelical framework. And Javon, actually the one you're looking at now, the Honestly Adoption one, that's from a publishing company that I know for a fact is part of the evangelical world. That's the Honestly Adoption one. And look, I'm not saying that these books are terrible. I'm not saying that they're wrong or that they give bad advice. I'm just saying they're written for a particular person who is not me and not this household. But then you go online and you look for stuff and you can't find anything. And it's incredibly frustrating. And there are, some people online who will talk about, oh, we have information about adoption and all this other stuff. And there's obviously nonprofits in the Jewish world that say they do adoption related stuff. But whenever you try to actually find something written for you by someone in the community, you can't find it. And it's incredibly frustrating, and enough that I've even thought about maybe doing some writing or doing something to kind of get more out there into the world about what it means to be like a Jewish adoptive parent. Because more often than not, and this goes into Javon's topic that he wants to talk about later about, adoption and like interracial, transracial, transcultural adoption, the likely chance, if you're a Jewish parent and you are adopting a kid in the United States, you are likely not adopting a Jewish child. Like, it's just the odds are kind of be pretty slim that that's going to happen, right? Now, obviously, kids can convert, and it's a Jewish household once they're adopted, no matter what their halakhic status is or whatever. But still, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to find a Jewish woman who's wanting to give up a child to adoption and all of that. So you're going to be stuck in this situation where all of the materials that are written for you as an adoptive parent aren't written for you as a Jewish parent. And all of the things that are written for you as a Jewish parent are things written for you as an adoptive parent. And you're just kind of stuck. And frankly, it sucks. And I don't know what we have to do to make it better, but we need to do something. So, Javon, any kind of thoughts on any of this stuff?
No, I was just listening.
You were just listening?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the Christian world, because I don't know, about, I haven't looked into what the other religions do.
Okay. As far as adoption's concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like what that is like. I mean, but the main ones you hear about are like, Christians, Catholics mostly.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, and the history of this stuff is really interesting. And you're bringing it up, the like Catholic and Protestant, because back in the day, the Catholic Church, I don't know how much, I know they still do a lot, but back in the day, a lot of it had to do with like Catholic unwed mothers and about like adoption that way. And there's some really bad history that goes along with that. And there's probably plenty of positive too. But that was kind of that frame of reference, right? But then with the evangelical world, it's really interesting. So basically, adoption wasn't a big thing that the evangelicals were into. That just, sure, they probably did some social work, but like it wasn't a big thing the way that it was with Catholics. But then what happened was that liberal evangelicals, so the Rick Warren type, for anyone who is into this kind of stuff, I'm kind of into religious history in America, but basically the Rick Warren sort of center right wing, not like right wing, but like center right socially of the evangelical world really got into adoption. And it was sort of a way of kind of softening the traditional pro-life message. And it was like, okay, we're going to focus on adopting. There's a lot of foreign adoption that took place. Again, not all people who adopted kids from other countries were evangelicals, but it was connected in a lot of ways to this great commission of like basically converting the world. And then there was also a little bit of a vibe among some people of, you're adopting kids from countries where they wouldn't be Christians, right? So you're adopting from India, you're adopting from China, Vietnam. So mostly that's Southwest Asia and all of that. And so there's kind of some funk that goes along with that. In the Jewish world, the closest thing I know of is during Perestroika, when Russia and the Soviet Union was starting to open up. You had some Jewish families that would adopt Soviet kids. So you did have some of that. And presumably there was a certain amount of those kids that were Jews, even though religion was effectively outlawed in the USSR. Either way, once they came into Jewish families, they became who they became. But you just don't have, again, it just goes back to you don't have in the Jewish world that same sort of cultural history when it comes to adoption, and so now if you are a Jewish parent who wants to adopt, you kind of got a whole lot of nothing, and you don't have anything that you can show your kids. Like there were no Jewish families that had adopted kids that, were not adults, like older adults by the time you came into our life. And it was a challenge, right? Like to feel like you're not seen.
Who, me or you?
Well, it was a challenge for me. I don't know. Was it a challenge for you?
Oh, no.
No. Why is that?
To be seen?
Yeah, to feel like you're like seen, to feel like you're being recognized.
Oh, do I want to be seen? I'm not. Do I like to be seen? No. I could just be there in the room,
Just in the room. Okay, gotcha.
silently in the background.
All right, so we're going to talk about transracial and transcultural adoption. And Javon has these books that we read before we adopted him. And he's got one in particular that has a chapter on this topic, and he has a lot of opinions on it. So, Javon, floor is yours. What you got for us?
All right, I think we'll just have to read the chapter. Everyone get that.
You're going to read the whole chapter. All right.
I mean, it's only a couple of pages.
Oh,
It ain't
okay.
nothing big.
Maybe, well, what does that tell you? That it's only a couple of pages in a book that's 100 pages. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's already page 115.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
you're already on page 115. There's only 2 pages in this book. Yeah. Okay. Priorities, right?
all right. Transracial and transcultural adoption. Where does your child fit in? The words transracial and transcultural are sometimes used interchangeably, but I believe that it is important to differentiate between them because they are distinct. Race refers to an anthropological system of classifications of humans based upon physical characteristics determined by heredity. People who share a genetic heritage and who, as a result, have very similar physical characteristics constitute a racial group. The characteristics that determine one's race are strictly biological and can include color and texture of hair, color of skin and eyes, stature, bodily proportions, and bone structure, tooth formation, and many other less visible biological traits. Culture is a system of values, beliefs, attitudes, traditions, and standards of behavior that govern the organization of both individual and group behavior. Culture is adaptive. It is created by groups of individuals and incorporated into group life to ensure survival and well-being to the group's members. In addition,
Oh, he's actually going to read the entire chapter.
oh,
Okay.
what do you think I was going to? Oh, yeah.
I figured you would like make pauses and make comments, but okay, no, go ahead.
Oh no, because I feel like I need to get to the part. I need to get.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Okay, no,
I-
hey, no. It's all you. It's all you, buddy. Go for it.
In addition to the cognitive systems mentioned, culture includes norms that in some ways regulate each individual's behavior. Everyone is a part of multiple cultures, and each of us must be able to navigate among the various cultures in which we live. It is doubtful that anyone has only one cultural perspective as a person lives within a family culture, a workplace culture, a faith culture, an academic culture, and a social culture. This list can likely be expanded to include even more areas. Culture is transmitted and perpetuated through life experiences. Race is perpetuated genetically. In this chapter, transracial adoption refers to a situation in which the adoptee is of a different race than one or both parents, because culture has to do with individuals' unique life experiences. It is not only possible but also probable that cultural differences will exist even within a same race adoption. It is likely that many adoptions that did not take place during infancy will have trans cultural features. I mean, obviously, because like, no, I'm just saying you could be like, you can be Scottish and then you could be like, Italian.
Right.
Two
You can be more than one
cultures.
thing. Yeah.
You're still white, but like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that makes sense. I mean, yeah, unless they're like a baby.
Right.
Then you have like, a non-transracial baby. You know what I'm saying? If you're not adopting a baby that's not of your different race,
Uh-huh.
then like the baby just could be, you wouldn't need to explain.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't, but it's a good idea to, because even in a case where, like, let's say, you're talking about a family where, I mean, it's a standard issue American white family where, everyone is broadly European, Irish and English, right? Like that's most Americans fit into that, Anglo-Saxon, most white, I should say, fit into some Anglo-Saxon European sort of framework. Children still deserve to know where they come from. And that's why, things like the genetic, companies and whatever, you can find out where you're from. So even if you have, let's say, a Black child raised by a Black family, even if the child is adopted, it's still good for them to know, like, oh, here's where my portion of the ancestry comes from. It's like telling a personal narrative, and that matters a lot.
I mean, well, obviously, you should hope they're told, because then, like, unintended consequences.
Oh God, yeah,
being found out.
These children that find out they're adopted when they've been told they weren't. Ugh. I
don't get why you would lie about something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's such a like.
That's an old school thing. Like, yeah, I don't know. No idea.
Okay, I'm gonna skip the last paragraph. Race matters. Ours is a society in which we often find it difficult to talk about race. So instead, we dance around it. When a person has grown up in one race environment, he knows very little about other races. His only point of reference are his parents' attitudes towards members of other races, the media, his peers, and stereotype images. Many parents who are involved in transracial in a country. Wow. Yeah, my reading skills. In a country adoption do not always acknowledge the transracial component. I know of one family who adopted a Black child from Brazil, and they expressed surprise whenever he is teased about being Black or is faced with other negative experiences as the result of racism. Why do people think he's Black? They asked me when he's from Brazil. My answer was short and sweet: because he's Black. People seldom consider the part of the world where the child was born and responded instead of how he looks. In chapter 2, I address the identity formation and the fact that adolescents are often mired in this potential intense process. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because, this is just don't pretend.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a world where you can afford to be blissfully ignorant, especially if you're going to raise a Black child.
Right.
You cannot. And as much as people say, oh, yeah, like, time change getting better, not everywhere.
Yeah.
Not everywhere.
Not
every person.
Right, exactly. And not every person. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, he can be from Brazil. Like, there's a lot of people in Brazil.
Yeah.
Like, and he just so happened to be a Black person from Brazil.
Yeah.
He's visibly Black. People will see him as Black.
Right.
Like, that's what they see. They see appearance first.
Right.
And then people who already have those imagined stereotypes or, watch their parents interact would have that, like, oh, he's different. Or, how kids are anyway.
Yeah.
Like, if you look different, they're gonna, like, get at you.
Yeah.
And, like, pretending or, like, not cause... I don't know. I just feel like when it comes to Black children specifically, I just feel like if you're going to do that, if you're going to adopt that Black child, you need to be ready to fight for that Black child.
Yeah.
Like, we were telling that story about those people in Montana,
right?
And how, like, the boy was Black and his parents were white and they were Jewish and they went to
the event and all that.
The event, and the child was bullied, and all they're going to do is complaining is not fighting. Not that you have to fight physically, but like...
Well, I was about to say, sometimes you don't have to beat people.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have to beat people up, but sometimes you know that you're serious. And sometimes being serious is not just trying to have a cool, calm, collected conversation. Because sometimes people take cool and collected as like, oh, so...
Yeah, and I mean...
sometimes you got to get mean, you got to get aggressive, you got to show people like, no, this is not okay.
Yeah, and the Brooke family is great because they like really, really challenged... and really like stood up for their kid. And obviously they're not going to live their life, completely in public because that's just not a thing people do. You don't report to the internet everything that happens in a family or in a workplace or whatever. But, when I saw the boy's mom, Rebbitzin Brooke, she I thought that was awesome how she was willing to challenge, an entire religious community against its prejudices and hold people accountable for the way that her son was treated. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, but there's also, it'll probably come up in the, transcultural portion, but I think, I'll just, sprinkle it in now, that you have to be aware of the space you're bringing your child into.
Yeah. Yeah.
And accommodate for that space.
Right.
And
so what does that mean, accommodate?
That means finding somewhere else where if you think this thing is good for your child, and since you like are Jewish and you're like, you know, the child is like, you know, wants to participate.
Right.
Find somewhere where that child is not or does not feel
othered.
Exactly.
Sort of. Yeah. And that is the challenge for Jews of color, because if you look at the statistics, and, you know, I know that I'm going to get, you know, people are going to come after me for saying this, but if you look at the data, like 15% of the Jewish community in America identifies as a person of color. Well, this is actually kind of a challenging thing, because who is a person of color? So in the Jewish world, like if you go to Israel, right? If you are a person of Yemeni, like if you're a Yemeni Jew, right? In the 1960s, we didn't use the term person of color, but like we would have a frame of reference that that person is a person of color. If you're a Yemeni Jew in America today, you may think of yourself as a person of color. Does the Jewish world think of you as a person of color? Right? If you are biracial, right? Like let's say you're, you know, black and you're white and you're Jewish, right? So you are, in America, we think of as like a person of color. In Israel, you're just like another Jewish person who just happens to have parents from two different parts of the world, ethnically, right? And also, if you are a Sephardic Jew in America, you could have a skin tone that's close to mine, but be, you know, from a family that spoke Ladino, and you have, you know, this like connection to, let's say, Cuba or Spain or wherever. And so one of the questions that the Jewish community has is like, we do sort of a self-identification of person of color. Fine. People should own their identities however they want. You will find that more in, let's say, New York, LA, Chicago, right? You're probably not going to find much of that in North Dakota. Like you're just not. There's not going to be, you know, 15%. There may not even be 1%, right? And so this idea that like everyone in America is equally in Jewish America is equally distributed as 15% person of color, it's not. It's like 15% here, 1% there, you know, maybe 3% here. And I think sometimes we sort of paint this multiracial picture that's maybe more appropriately multi-ethnic or multicultural and things like that. So you're going to have a lot of predominantly white spaces where you're going to have one or two people of color, right? It isn't until you go to a place like New York where the rainbow is a lot more prominent. And yeah, and so it's a challenge. So if you're a family who lives, I don't know, I'm making this up, but like somewhere in Nebraska, right? And you're, you know, Sephardic, you're Mizrahi, you're Ethiopian, you're a Black American, like whatever. Like, yeah, where is the space for Jews of color? There's barely space for Jews, let alone Jews of color. And it's just a challenge that people face. And there's no good answer to like, how do you find a space that's good for people if there's a limited number of spaces?
I mean, well, ultimately is you find a space, you know, that shows respect to people.
That's even more important. Yeah, exactly.
Is where, you know, it should be. Like, honestly, yes, I am going to tag people with parenting because you should teach your kids better. Like, they should know better. They should know how to behave in the world.
Oh, I agree, 100%. Yeah, you shouldn't say yeah, like absolutely.
And like, especially for like, you know, going into this whole tangent of like groups that are othered,
right?
Like, you want to other people,
right?
And then you will be looked at the same way,
right? Of all people to other people,
exactly.
Yeah,
you're not in a space of, oh, now let me look down my nose at you.
Right.
Like more importantly, respect. These are people at the end of the day.
Right.
Like, just because they look different doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I'm, you know, trying to give, you know, numbskulls like lessons on like, you know, civility. But
well, you know what? Maybe you have to. And the thing that's interesting that you were talking about cultural versus racial. So you think about people who are Jewish, in America, you wind up, if you belong to a community of some kind, you belong to a community wherever, like So whatever that community's predominant racial and cultural background is, that's kind of the practice that you follow, right? So like the way Ethiopian Jews celebrate Shabbat, musically, culturally, food ways, all of that is very different. The prayers may be the same, right? But the way they're sung is going to be different, and just the general flavor than, say, a normatively Ashkenazi, German, American Reform synagogue, in Mississippi or whatever, or Georgia or whatever. So, like, even if you have, someone who is of a different race, if they are part of a culture, right? If they're part of like the Chabad movement, let's say, or, sort of suburban American Reform or conservative Judaism, that is a culture that is separate from the racial identities of the people who are in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that matters.
All right. On to the next portion.
Okay, go for it.
Because I'm just going to skip a paragraph.
Okay.
Race matters. In most cultures and society, given this country's history, historical race-based problems, it matters a lot. White adoptive parents must lead the way in helping their child of color build an understanding of relevance of race, preparing them for what they may face in the world, as with other critical issues I have discussed: drugs, alcohol, XEX.
Yeah, I don't know, right. Can't let the algorithm say the word. Yep, I get it.
Race needs to be addressed at an early age, not during adolescence. Race is central to our culture, and embracing a mentality of we're all the same doesn't begin to do it justice. Period on that part. If you're going to raise, especially Black children, because Black children are raised, especially if you're raised in a Black home.
Okay,
you're raised cautiously. Okay, if that makes sense. You already know, like, where you stand.
How do you mean where you stand?
Like how people will perceive you.
Okay. As a Black person.
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
So you're preparing for that. You're preparing for if something happens.
Okay. Right.
It's more of an if something happens, and you're prepared for it.
Okay.
Pretending, when people who have not faced discrimination raise a different race. I'm saying Black child because this is my, I'm Black.
Yeah, that's what your frame of reference, right? Yeah.
So when a white person has never experienced that, it's hard to grasp. Mm-hmm. Like even if you think you know, you don't know.
Right.
You will never know.
Sure.
Because you'll never be in that seat.
Right.
And just pretending.
Culture matters.
Yeah, just pretending, America's in a great space. I can adopt this child now and, blah, blah, blah. You seeing your child and the way someone else seeing your child are two different sites.
Well, in the case of younger children too, because that's the thing about us is that we adopted you at an age where, you knew who you were and you didn't have this long history of living with white parents and not knowing where you belonged and stuff like that. So it's that's another thing about these books that frustrates me is that they kind of lean into the idea that you are adopting a little kid, right? So that's why we ended up getting, the two books that were the teenager specific ones too. Because we were none of this helps. I'm pretty sure that Javon knows that he's Black. I'm sure that I don't have to get him a history book on whatever. But even the adolescent books, again, it starts with a frame of reference that you adopted these kids when they're little. Now they're adolescents and have turned into monsters. And you have to figure out how to raise these kids in a new way from when you adopted them when they were, preschool age. And it was so frustrating because it's where's the book on how to raise Javon? And there just wasn't one.
I feel like people come in ill prepared.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this in another section.
Yeah. Okay.
But people come in ill prepared, thinking which you shouldn't think that this is going to be a cakewalk because it's raising a kid. That's not a cakewalk.
Your word's not mine, kid.
I mean, it's not. You don't have to, people know that this is a known. They're children. Children are children.
Yeah, that's right.
That says enough.
All blessings are responsibilities. That's what I'm going to say. Children are a blessing. They're a responsibility. Being a parent is a blessing. It's a responsibility.
And it can also be annoying and irritating.
That's okay.
Let's be honest.
Now here's what's funny is that I said to Javon before we did this series, I was like, well, we're going to talk about all these adoption things, whatever. And he's like, I don't have any opinions because I'm not an adoptive parent. And I was like, I'm sure you have opinions on these things. And now you're throwing down, opinions about what it's like to raise kids.
No, I'm just saying, you can be honest. You can be like, oh yeah, my kid is irritating. That's fine. It's fine to say, parents, it's fine to say that your kids are irritating. This, everyone knows that you were irritating as a kid.
I'm sure I was. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, this is something, Don't be ever afraid to, be like, yeah, my children, get on my nerves today. That's easy. Don't be resentful. Don't build resentment.
Yeah, yeah. And appropriate venue. That's a good, book/wine club.
Exactly.
You don't say that in front of your children at their faces.
You don't tell them, you're such a disappointment.
Oh, that was terrible. I'm like,
yeah,
never,
you don't say that.
Never. You don't.
Okay.
You don't. Okay, please continue. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to skip a little bit.
Okay.
Multiracial families will likely have faced many questions, insults, and ignorance by the time their child has become adolescent. Most adopted families face a host of rude, thoughtless questions from others, but mixed race families are more likely to be approached by complete strangers who sling a barrage of questions. They're not yours, are they? What happened to their real parents? Do you have children of your own? Do they live with you? Was it expensive to adopt a Chinese kid? There is a wide variability in how families define themselves and how they are defined by others. Multiple motivations prompt people to adopt, and this is also true for families who decide to adopt transracially. The following questions should be answered honestly when considering transracial adoption. I am not going to ask those questions. I should. Should I? Who knows? I can answer the audience, but
okay. So are these questions that the adoptive parents should consider, or are these?
Yeah, just the parents' book.
Okay, well, so throw it on me.
Oh wait, I was going to get into a point first.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Got it.
Yeah, first of all, don't ever walk up to nobody and who does that? That's deranged.
We dealt with it.
Yeah,
we dealt with it.
Yeah, but that's deranged.
Yeah,
who raised you to be coming up to people and minding other people's business? It is just, that's a deranged thing to do.
It's cultural.
It's not though. You don't ever. That's the stuff that gets you smacked. You don't ever stand to people's business. Don't be like, are they yours? That is a crazy question to let fly out your mouth. Yeah. Do you not think before that?
People did. We weren't in. See, this is another one of these, this presumes that you have small children. Type of thing. Because no one ever, when we adopted you, no one ever came up to us and said, is he yours? It's you see three people together, you figure out. You know.
But still.
Right.
But more, whether or not it happened to us, but still. And more importantly, what would possess you to ask that question?
Yeah, since we didn't deal with that, I'm lucky. I feel fortunate that I didn't have to deal with that, because that would have absolutely been, I wouldn't even known how to react in the moment. But I will say, there's been a couple of times where when we've been traveling, the three of us, if there's a Black family near us, the flight attendants or the Amtrak people or whoever or TSA will assume that you're with them and not with us.
Oh, when did that happen? I don't know. I don't think I noticed this.
It happened one time when we were going through TSA. I don't remember where it was, which airport. But I remember so I think it was you were behind the two of us. And then everybody gets dinged at TSA. So I went through and I was fine. And then you were going through, and I think, I don't know, you know how these biometric things work, right?
Yeah, I feel like I know. So were we coming from Mexico?
I don't remember. I have no idea. I don't remember where we were traveling from, but you got, dinged when you go through the bioscanner. And so I was standing there because they were going to do a little pat down type thing, right? Nothing serious, but still.
I think I remember.
And I remember the guy saying to me, "Sir, you can move on." He was trying to get me to get out of the way. And I think it might have been particularly stressful travel day because I looked at the guy and he was a black gentleman about 50 something. And I said, "Sir, that's my son. And if you're going to touch him, I'm going to stand right here and watch." And
That's inappropriate.
well, no, of course not. But I remember the guy like going, "Oh, yeah, sorry, please, like stay here, whatever." So he was cool and it all worked out. But like, that's just it's like Sesame Street used to do the thing where they'd have 3 items and they'd see one of these things that just doesn't belong. And I can see like giving people the benefit of the doubt, like if they see, like, let's say a black family near us, they're going to immediately establish like, oh, he must be with them. So we changed the way that we formed in line with you. And we never told you that we did this, but you probably figured it out at some point.
Me sandwich in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, we started sandwiching you in the middle so that people would see like these are the parents traveling with a child. And once we started doing that, no one ever assumed that you were like,
I like how you assumed I didn't realize.
Well, we figured you did.
Yeah, because
we figured you did. You're smart.
Watch.
Like, yeah, but seriously, like interracial parents, like, let me just tell you, that works. Like, put the kids, like, especially if they're older kids, where it would be assumed that they're by themselves or they're traveling, whatever. Put them between you. That way, like, people just see 2 adults, kids, and they put together like, oh, it's a family traveling together.
Yeah, but who knows how relevant this book will be, like, considering America becoming more transracial.
Yeah.
So, very interesting. Okay, on to the questions.
Okay.
How diverse are your social relationships?
How diverse are my social I mean, I think that my social relationships are fairly diverse, given the fact that, like, we live in the South, but we don't live like, it's not Atlanta. Like, there's more diversity in terms of like people living in the same neighborhoods together. I feel like Richmond is more segregated. And I would say, having said that, I think that my own personal opinion is that we have pretty, like, not just racial, but cultural and class and LGBTQ.
All right.
I would say so. You're welcome to disagree if you have any disagreements on any of these questions.
Oh, well, we just got to the first question.
Okay. All right.
Must
have passed the first one.
Is your community accustomed to people of color?
My community, meaning like the people who live in this neighborhood, or like
I'm assuming people who live in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, we have. I don't know.
You don't even see people outside like that.
Yeah, no, you really don't. It's the suburbs. People get in their car and drive somewhere. I would say our Walmart near us is probably the most racially diverse place in the area. Like, you have everybody shopping there.
All right.
Shout out to, do I give a shout out to Walmart? If you want to sponsor, I guess, sure.
Yeah, give me like a free gift card.
Yeah.
Does your school district include children of color?
Yeah, I mean, what, 15%, something like that?
Yeah,
probably.
It wasn't like, Henrica,
right?
It was very Chesterfield.
Yeah, so again, like, it goes back to, we live in the suburbs. If this were Roswell, Marietta, any of the places that we lived in Georgia, it would be more. It would be like 30%. But yeah.
How willing are you to make changes to your lifestyle to accommodate your adolescent's needs for ongoing involvement with peers who are like them?
I mean, I haven't had to change anything regarding your social outlets, so that's kind of a non-issue. But I did learn about hair care products,
exactly.
So I don't know if that matters.
How do members of your extended family feel about racial minorities? Let's get into it. Yeah.
Spill the tea about my family.
Exactly.
Obviously, everyone who has met you loves you. And so I don't think that there's anything of that to be concerned of. I do think that there were people who, like, were friends, for example, of like my mom's, who, they're older, right? They're in their 80s, who sort of were initially like, oh, well, that's different. Because, to them, 60, 70 years ago, that was different. That didn't happen. Or it probably didn't happen often. So I'm going to give them, they're not family, so I'm going to give them the pass. And no one in our family, had any issues with us adopting a person of color. So.
Okay. Is your faith community integrated?
I would say so. Yeah.
All right.
I know that you always like, you're like the person of color whisperer. Like, you see people of color at our events and stuff, and you're like, who's that person?
Yeah, because I never seen them.
Yeah, you check in. Well, also to be fair, like, you don't keep a running catalog of people's names and stuff like that. So sometimes you'll see the same person 4 or 5 times, and you're like, oh, they come often? Or like, yes, they come often.
Can you?
That has nothing to do with race. That has to do with, like, it's not your job to pay attention to who shows up to stuff.
Exactly. Can you embrace, not just accept or tolerate your adolescent racial and cultural heritage?
Can I embrace? I mean, as much as you would want to. You know what I mean? Like, it's like my sister when she said, like, are you going to teach him about, like, dealing with the police and stuff like that? And that was so well-intentioned for her to say that. But also it was another one of those, like, he's older. So, like, you don't have to, you know what I mean? It just didn't apply the same way. But I don't know. I remember when we first asked you, do you celebrate Kwanzaa? And you laughed at us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll say that was a bit of a kick in the teeth, because I was like, wow, I kind of thought I was going to have to be like, cool interracial family dad. And instead it's like, no.
Black people in the South celebrate Kwanzaa.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I've never known a black person who did, except people posting Kwanzaa stuff on Instagram.
Don't see that either. Okay.
That could be an age thing too.
Are you willing to have friends of his race spend time at your home?
I mean, they have, so,
Yeah, okay.
So we passed that test.
What are your feelings about interracial dating and or marriage?
What are my feelings about it? I mean,
why are you asking me the question?
Yeah. Well, no. Here's why that kind of surprises me. That surprises me more than some of the other questions, because interracial marriage is so normative now that they don't even ask people's opinions on it. When was this book written, by the way? I mean, it. Here, yeah. Go to the cover or whatever, first page. Yeah, at the bottom there. They'll give you the publishing date at least.
2009.
2009. Well, okay. So that was 15 years ago. Okay. All right. I'll give them the pass on that one. Yeah, 15 years ago, maybe. That was still like we were sort of at the finishing line of having opinions on interracial dating. I mean, the number of interracial weddings I've officiated, I think people know my opinion at this point.
Are you willing to advocate actively for your adolescent when he experiences the fallout of racism?
I'm trying to think if you've experienced.
No, I
haven't. Yeah. So I guess I don't. I guess I can't speak.
Because the universe knows not to put me in that position. I swear.
I would. If you needed me to do something, I would. Just haven't had to. Thank God.
Can you comfort him when he tries to date someone he's been friends with for years, but is now seen by her family as a young black man instead of a cute little African boy?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
What?
I think I'm moving on to the next question. That's wow.
What?
Okay.
Wow. This is, I guess people were posing these questions in 2009.
Well, I mean, because think about it. Like, in that case, you're talking about, stereotypes around crime, violence, socioeconomic stuff, things like that. And so, like, yeah, like I could imagine some little, like, I guess they're framing like a boy, right? Mm. Like, I can imagine some little boy, like, growing up in an all-white neighborhood and thinking about culturally is like a suburban kid, and, I'm thinking about like I remember the guy, I think his name was Randall in the show This Is Us, like being a perfect example that, like, yeah, it's like that kid. But yeah, then suddenly, like, oh, well, now he's a scary black teenager, hoodlum, gangbang, banger, like whatever type personality. Like, yeah, I could see how there would be parents that would be that way. Yeah. 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 I think actually there was an episode of This Is Us about that very topic, but that would have been in the 90s, I think, is when that was set. So yeah, culture's changed.
All right.
But probably not all the time.
I mean, yeah, in places where you don't get, much variety of people.
Right, yeah.
How will you feel if your adopted son calls you white or black if you are a person of color who has adopted a Caucasian child? Well, the second part would apply to you, but how would you feel if your adopted son called you white?
I mean, I am, so I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I think this is, made for people who are certain people. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe people for whom these would be real legitimate issues.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're dealing with people who are, a little overprivileged, if you're dealing with like older Southern people, like, yeah, I could see that. Like, I remember the first time. It wasn't the first time. No, I remember early on when we adopted you, you had your hair like pulled up and mom was over and she thought your hair was really cute and she went to like kind of like be cute, like cutely like touch your hair, be like, oh, my cute grandson, that kind of vibe. But like there's this history of like white people and black hair. And so when I saw her like coming up to you at like 82, so give the woman some credit here. And she's like going up, yeah, my mother grew up in like segregated public housing, right? So like you want to give an example of someone for whom this book was written who'd be like, this is like ridiculous that anyone would feel this way. Shout out to my mother. But she did go up to you and you were sitting like in a chair. She walked up from behind you and went to like touch your hair. And I almost had that like action movie moment where it's like, no, and like jump in front of her, like, and like whatever. And I did actually say something to mom about like, oh, he's a teenager, so maybe you don't touch a teenager's hair. And she immediately was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like he's a young adult. Okay. I didn't have to get into the whole, thing of it.
How will you manage things when you see your child socializing with adolescents who may be of a different class?
Maybe of different class. Now, that's interesting, right? Because I think some of the racial stuff, like, there's this one educator, Sean Harris. Shout out to Sean, who I haven't seen in forever. And we were at some class together. She's a Jewish educator. We were at some class together, and she and I were talking about race, and she said, she's a black woman, and she said, well, race and class in America are tied, right? And like, it wouldn't surprise me if some of the stuff in there about like, how would you feel about insert racial thing is also kind of more today coded with class. Like, how would you feel? Like, you could change the questions to how would you feel about your college age daughter dating someone who only had a high school education, right? Or how would you feel about, marrying someone who has a PhD, right? And like those tells might also be coded in race as well, but I think would be way more interesting right now because we know it statistically, there is a college divide. Like that is what divides this country. Did you go to college or not? And it dictates everything about like how you feel about the world.
I mean, by
a large margin.
It hasn't always been a thing.
Oh, I'm sure, but it's
you don't marry the person of the lower,
Oh yeah, sure, but the thing is that we had
iron worker.
Well, yeah, but we also had race, religion, geography. Like you don't marry a Yankee when you're a Southerner. I mean, that was people used to legit feel that way. That was like a real thing. As crazy as that sounds, we don't have that kind of stuff the way we used to. And now it's the college divide. Like and it has nothing to do with money either. Like, we assume it would because college used to equal you are doing better financially or you come from money. Right now you can get student loans and that can change that. But like, yeah, I would say political party are probably the two that relate a little bit more.
I think people
some of that right now,
especially like on this front, should not think they're smarter than what they are.
Yeah.
Because just because you have a degree doesn't make you smarter than the mechanic.
That's true. That's very true.
Is that degree going to help you fix that car? No. Intelligence is, is a spectrum. We all learn differently. We all know.
Yeah.
We all know more.
Yeah.
Than some people in some certain things. So yeah, the degree won't help. You not having a degree is not a slight. You having a degree is, not. People need to stop putting these like titles and
Right.
weight behind sheets of paper and how long you went to school, because someone could be, done their, technical training and be just as smart as everybody else.
I would be fascinated to see if these questions were changed. They won't apply to adoption, but like, if you were to ask these types of questions and say political party or class questions, it would be like,
people, because we are in that time.
We are in that time.
Okay,
yes, well said.
So I'm gonna just skip to the last question because I find this question the most interesting.
Oh, okay.
If your adolescent suddenly hates everything relating to a color other than his own, including you, how will you respond?
Hey, you hear about stuff like that every once in a while, and there's a resentment, right, that some people feel, and who knows, like what, I don't have that lived experience, as they say. I mean, I would hate. This was something we actually did talk about when we were adopting you. We did not want you to feel like the Black community had let you down because you ended up being adopted by white parents, or that the Black church let you down because you were adopted by Jewish people. And, do I have that responsibility to do that on behalf of the Black community? A, I probably don't. And B, it's probably not my place to. Right? Because that's just another kind of like white savior, type stuff. But it was something that we were concerned about. We didn't think you were going to like say a bunch of bad stuff about being Black or whatever, but we just didn't want you to feel like, what I said. So I don't know. Yeah, but that was important to us, that we didn't, that you didn't feel like you were cut off from anything, or that, sort of the Black world had failed you, in masse, as they say, or en masse. I forget how you say that.
All right. Don't have anything else to talk about on this topic. Let me see. Let me skim.
Go for it. While you're skimming, I'll just go ahead and give a little commercial break here. So, hey, Darshan Yeshiva, it's great. We'd love for you to join. If you join, you're going to have access to premium content. You're going to have access to classes for free for life. So it's not a subscription. It's either a payment plan or pay once. And you get all kinds of stuff. I think we're all kind of exhausted by subscribing to all these streaming services and Substacks and all of this other stuff. This is a one and done. So you pay for the program you're interested in, you get it for free for life. And by the way, if you don't like it, we'll refund your money. We promise. Head over to darshanyeshiva.org. You're going to get this. You're going to get the Rabbi Patrick content. You're going to get the year of Torah study that we put on Substack. Best as I know, we were the first ones to, put a yeshiva on Substack. But we got all of that. We've got all of the videos, podcasts, all of the stuff behind the paywall over on darshanyeshiva.org, not just Substack, but we'd love to have you. So darshanyeshiva.org, and tell them that Rabbi and Son sent you. All right, Javon, have we called it quits? We got it, or you got one more thing for us?
No, I think I've finished all my thoughts on this chapter.
Finished all your thoughts on this chapter. Well, just a thank you to Gregory C. Keck. I feel really bad that we, just tore apart your book from 15 years ago. Maybe you got an updated version, who knows? But we're going to get into it some more with other adoption-related issues. Thank you, Javon, for your thoughts. Now we're going to talk about a subject that, just disclaimer, we're probably going to word things in really weird ways, because we're going to talk about what they used to call human growth and development when I was a kid. And the algorithms and censorship and all of this other stuff is a problem. And if you say certain words, you get demonetized and blah, 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 blah. So we're going to have to be real careful with this. But this is another chapter here in the Parenting Adopted Adolescents by Gregory C. Keck book. And it is about, Javon.
Oh, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, physical and actual development, actuality, and actual behavior.
I like this actual. That's a good way of doing it. Yeah, because it turns out that the kids, they become young adults, and then stuff goes along with that.
Yeah.
And we adopted you, sort of fully baked here. So our experience of this stuff is a little different. But Of all of the things, like, look, we've got like 4 books here. You got hundreds and hundreds of pages, but you picked out this chapter. So I'm curious to know, like, what was it? What's your hot take on this as far as adoption, being an adopted kid, adoptive parents? What you got for us?
When we're talking about, transracial adoption, questions of identity.
Yeah.
And what more
Oh, snap.
comes that time when it's, the time for, the flower to bloom, and the seasons change,
Right.
So, yeah, this will be a time where your body's changing, your mind is changing.
Right.
You hate yourself, you hate everyone around you. And so, like, what would make that, more?
That's what becoming middle-aged feels like to me, to be honest with you. My body is changing and I hate everyone around me.
Yeah, so what would...
Especially people who are young and attractive, and I'm like, you don't deserve this.
Yeah, so, what more would add on to that, other than, also being adopted while you're experiencing these, significant life changes. You're coming into yourself,
right?
Which you will still have to come into later. But like, this
it's gonna happen either way.
First time, different shenanigans going on.
Sure, shenanigans. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna start off the chapter.
Go for it.
Puberty is a time that many parents dread. They associate it with emotional instability, heightened sexual awareness and feelings, and potential sexual behavior, all of which are valid concerns. Puberty marks the onset of adolescence, and as such, it is the beginning of a developmental period that may span 10 or more years. In addition to being the longest phase of human development, it is also the most complex, involving psychological, cognitive, social, and emotional changes. The progress integrates that many components of a child's life, and it is the last leg of development prior to adulthood. Before you decide that neither you nor your adolescent will survive this time of life, remember that your parents survived it when you crossed the threshold, and you made it safely to the other side too. To be sure, it's not an easy. It's not an easy transition, but if you're both prepared, the journey might be somewhat less precocious than you anticipated. You know what? All these fancy words, like, I know me a couple big words, but precocious, like, okay, we get it. You're smart. You have a PhD to help with that. Preparations. Let's take a look at some issues you might be confronted when nature kicks in. Okay, this is very that time.
Okay.
Where everything is confusing, everything is heightened, everything is emotional.
Sure.
Everything is everything, and everything is nothing at the same time.
This is why I think that teachers in middle schools should probably get hazard pay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, middle school was just so terrible. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible fun.
Terrible fun for you.
Terrible fun. Okay. With the onset of puberty comes a host of psychological changes. Just physiological.
I think we all know what happens with
physiological changes. Yeah. The body's timetable has reached the point at which something new and different is happening nearly all the time. For starters, the pace of growth accelerates, sometimes very quickly. If an adolescent gets very tall very fast, he may find it difficult to coordinate his new body. He may feel awkward, self-conscious, and unattractive. In truth, most adolescents do not feel good about their bodies, while they perceive others, even their peers, as normal. They see themselves as flawed. I'm too fat. I'm too skinny. My arms are too long. My legs are too short. My nose and my feet are way too big. Whatever they consider important, they'll convinced they don't have enough of it. Okay, so I think this is important. And I think this goes, parenting in general, but,
okay.
And especially in the world of social media. And, I don't like to bring in social media because I do think, be a parent and, like, don't blame social media. But, yeah, this is the time where, all that stuff is going to, come into play.
Sure.
And people as, new parents,
Right.
probably, what parents in general, whether they're adopted or new parents, like
Okay.
this is a time where it's like, how am I gonna, take on this task?
Right.
Even though you've dealt with the task before.
Right.
Like, but you weren't the one like in charge of like, a rabid, puberty filled teenager, ripping through the, ripping through the world.
But every parent of, an adolescent, particularly a like pre-adolescent, when they know that like, the sparks are starting to fly, they all are just like, oh my God, how am I going to survive this?
Yeah, but
like that's the common collective groan of like every parent I've ever met. No, I've never met a parent who like their kid's turning about, 12-ish years old, who's just like, bring it on, let's do this, can't wait.
I mean, they're probably like, I can't wait to get over with.
Well, that's the funny thing about bar and bat mitzvahs, right? Is that we do them at basically the onset of puberty. And I'm like, could we have thought of a worse possible time to define adulthood?
Kids are just all awkward, trying to read, all nervous and sweaty.
Oh my gosh. A bar bat mitzvah like party afterwards where like the girls are all like 5.5 feet tall and the boys are all like 4'11". It's amazing because the girls also want to wear heels too, right? They want to be like older, whatever. The boys don't want to be wearing those suits, maybe some of them do, but like most of them wish they could wear t-shirts and jeans. I just love the contrast of that.
Yeah. Okay. Take acne, for example. Many adolescents don't just have acne, they feel as if they are acne. Where others see a few isolated zits, they see massive forests of screaming red bumps.
Yep.
And if this is what they perceive, it becomes their reality. Going to school becomes more than just going to school. It becomes, how can I go to school and make sure no one sees my pizza?
Oh, no.
Real or not.
Yeah.
This is how they view their dilemma. And for them, minor issues become larger than life. Yeah, I mean, this is interesting. Because how would you deal with that? Like, I don't, that is.
What, as an adoptive parent, how would you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, or a parent just in general. Because,
right.
like, now you're seeing your child, like, become self-conscious.
Right.
And like, some people go into puberty like the same, like, out about like, talkative in your face, like as they were when they were a kid. But like to see that like
right, that
shift,
change, right.
Like, and it's like, well, I'm gonna put on like, baggy clothes because I feel like I'm too fat.
Right.
Or like,
right.
I feel like my arms are too little, or I feel like, I'm becoming like the Jolly Green Giant, or I don't want to go to school because of what are they gonna talk about now? Who's looking at me?
Well, and the thing about it is like when you're that age and you're going through that stuff, you don't want your parents to like tell you what to do, to like help yourself or anything. Like I remember my poor, late father, Art Bollier of blessed memory, was trying to help me with like some bullying I was dealing with. And I remember he was like telling me something about when he was a kid, whatever. And my exact words to the poor man were, I don't want to hear how they used to deal with it 80 years ago. My poor dad. That was a kick in the stomach. But, that's just it, is that you're a teenager and you feel like your parents don't know anything. And that, that's just, I think enlightened parents just know that that's the way that this goes down. And you try to be supportive and stuff like that. And, just, you can be a teenager, just don't be a jerk. That's pretty much the rule. As best as you can. What else you got for us?
Okay, I feel like I need to speed this up a little bit.
Okay.
But I'm going to skip. So this, before the chapter, I'm going to read like the last paragraph before I start the next one. Prior to this stage, children do not engage in such intense self-evaluation like before.
Before, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
Their day-to-day lives are devoid of self-criticism and self-loathing, and they simply are. Little boys run around with dirt streaks on their face, torn socks, oblivious to how to others. Little girls play and chat with their friends, not caring if their pigtails are slightly askew or if their thighs are a bit chubby. They don't compare themselves to others because the personal competition is simply not within their frame of reference. But when adolescence hit, everything changes. Comparisons to one's peers are rampant, and the words like taller, thinner, prettier, cuter, cooler, smarter, funnier, and even sexier becomes part of the vocabulary. An adopted adolescent may experience a heightened sense of not fitting in, and he may extend to extend the comparisons to his family. It's common for you know, I'm just really shocked about the him. Like, not trying to be woke, but like I'm like, wow, like, you know, boys aren't the only one that get adopted. Apparently, this is the one to leave the the girls to, like, be somewhere else. Uh, um, yeah, it's common for him to begin to wonder why he doesn't look like his parents, and why people are suddenly mentioning the fact. It wasn't an issue earlier because his friends were too busy playing and being kids to notice that his mom and dad have darker eyes, but his are baby blue. And oh yeah, speaking of this, so when I was in middle school, because this conversation came up when we were starting biology.
Okay.
And she basically like had to send out like a notice.
Okay.
That they were starting like the biology unit.
Okay.
So basically, like, if you need to tell your child something, like,
no.
Yeah, because she had an instance one year where she was explaining biology and she was explaining how eye colors work.
Yeah.
And when the kids' parents both had brown eyes, but he had blue eyes.
No.
Yeah. So she said from then on she had to.
I mean, that's like something you would have in like a TV show.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was like, whoa.
Whoa. Yeah. Yeah.
That is something. That is something to find out in the middle of a biology lesson in front of class.
That's something to like, that's something to tell all of your students about.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, but she was just like, just in case, just in case.
Wow. Oh,
yeah. Busy playing, being kids to notice that his mom has, and dad have darker eyes, and his are baby blue. And even if the difference were mentioned when he was younger, the disparities take on a new meaning in adolescence. When a growth spurt occurs, the adolescent may suddenly be a head taller than his father. This, of course, prompts questions such as, wow, who did you get this height from?
Right.
Although this happens within birth families as well, the question doesn't trigger anything deeper. Even a what in the world word is that?
Benign.
Like, you can write a normal book for regular people. A benign question about height may cause the adopted adolescent to feel unauthentic if he doesn't answer the question with, "Oh, I was adopted." As a child beginning to show signs of growing, they are also experiencing physical changes related to sexual development, and this can be a source of intense emotional discomfort. Take the case of early bloomers who may feel like total misfits. Body hair in the fourth grade. In the fifth grade, this isn't happening to any of my other classmates, so I just must be a freak. While they're stressing over it too much too soon, the late bloomers in high school across the town is anxiously waiting for their first armpit hair. Yeah, I think that this makes good points. Especially if you like have a child that like looks like you racially,
right?
Then it comes that question of, oh, why is my dad so short? And now I'm just like, the Jolly Green Giant, and like everyone else is short. So like, what's going on?
Right.
And then like those questions of, oh, if they find out I'm adopted, am I going to get picked on? Or is there going to be another thing that they could drag me about? Is there going to be another thing?
Right. Because kids shouldn't get more ammunition. Yeah, to make fun of each other.
If your child, looks like you racially, they will have a lot more questions. And some people take the perspective of, well, let me just tell the child early, so like they always know. But then you have to also juggle that fact of, well, if I keep telling them they're adopted, then they're gonna feel like, well, I'm just adopted, I'm the other. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, some people do feel that way of, I've been told I'm adopted this whole time, I must not be on the same level. And then that comes
the same level as who? Like a biological child?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that goes, and then as you go into puberty, that question, that thought, still rings, and then like it continues to grow and continues to fester. And then like, I would say for like the other, if you are transracial, then it's like, oh, well, everyone else looks different than me, and I'm just
Right.
I'm just here. Yeah, so this is very complex, and I don't think a book can like really dig into that
Yeah.
as much as like someone telling you, because it's different when you hear from somebody else.
Sure.
And, like hearing it in a book.
Well, and this goes back to the cultural aspect of this as well, as like, in what ways would different groups deal with questions of like, adolescence and stuff like that. Like I used the example of like bar and bat mitzvah. That is a Jewish way of looking at adolescence, right? It's a thing you do, and it's a rite of passage and whatever. What is it like to be Black and to be going through puberty versus being Southeast Asian or insert any number of groups or peoples or whatever. And then what happens if you're in a transracial family and your family doesn't know like the, I don't know, cultural elements of, what it's like to be going through puberty as a person of that race. Like, are there certain elements of it that are a little different? Like in the earlier podcast, when we talked about, you were asking all those questions, and there was the thing about like, how would you feel if like the girl is, friends with the Black boy, and then the Black boy becomes a young Black man and now he wants to date the girl, or whatever that kind of convoluted story was. Like becoming a young Black man in America probably comes with a certain amount of cultural baggage that becoming a young white female or whoever doesn't. And if you don't know how to talk about that in that way, then yeah, I could see that being a challenge for adoptive parents.
Yeah. So yeah, these are questions that, you need to ask yourself before considering adopting.
Like, do you feel like you'd be able to handle a kid going through puberty?
I mean, that and like, transracial adoption, transcultural, like you need to think this is like this is not something you can like wake up and like, oh yeah, I want to do.
Right.
You have to be considerate.
Right.
It's considering, and it's like also researching because, different racial groups, I'm not gonna say they develop at different times, but like, different things, similar things, but happen differently.
Okay. Gotcha.
If that makes sense. Clearly not a scientist, but I'm just saying, like, how things happen, how, mature and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, and ultimately the point of, like, especially like during the adolescence when like those thoughts that the child wasn't thinking about creep into their mind, and then they like all the negative. You need to be prepared, to be like having a conversation about you don't need to be like feeling that way, like well, we can't really stop. Yeah, feel bad for parents, like because that's situation. People should be Wow, sorry for parents who are getting ready to gear up on that horse.
All right, anything else for us?
I think that's all for me, unless you got some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get much into all of the different elements of adolescence because you have, LGBTQ, you have, dating, you have all of that other stuff. But yeah, I mean, adoption, the adoption part and the transracial parts aside, it ain't easy being a parent. Yeah.
It's not easy being a child.
It's not easy being a child. There you go. We're going to leave it at that. Well done. Thank you to our sponsors at Darshan Yeshiva for making this content possible. Darshan Yeshiva provides beginner-level online Jewish learning, including the very popular Conversion to Judaism program, with sponsoring rabbis and students all over the world. Start your Jewish journey any place, anywhere, and anytime with our conservative, reform, reconstructionist, Jewish renewal, humanistic, and post-denominational rabbi mentors. Become the Jew you always wanted to be with Darshan Yeshiva.